Welcome back to the Extra Buttery Podcast. This episode is part 2 of our Toronto International Film Festival special episode. If you've listened to part 1, then you know we've assembled a couple of our friends all together here in Toronto to talk about the movies we've seen so far at TIFF 2019. And we had so much fun recording the episode that we've actually split it into 2 parts. So as we jump on in, you'll be hearing myself, Robert Snow, Jason Chen, my co-host, and our friends Kate Wilkinson and Peter Henderson as we move on to talking about the new Mariel Heller movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, starring Tom Hanks.
But you know, in terms of a attentive audience, there were silent moments during A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which Rob and Jason and I watched today, the new Mr. Rogers movie with Tom Hanks. And it was like you could hear a pin drop in the Princess of Wales Theater. Yeah. People were so respectful and quiet. I feel like that doesn't happen in a non-festival setting.
And I feel like people in the audience wanted to like it too. Like every little joke, every little sequence with the miniatures, everyone was going ooh and awing and going haha, you know.
Not to jump in too quickly, but I did kind of, on second thought, I came out of the movie with like, that was good. But you know, I'm not really sure that Tom Hanks managed to quite capture Mr. Rogers, and I
agree with you.
Like,
Interesting.
He irritates he is an antagonist, which I liked that description by the director in the Q&A. Like he does antagonize this main character named Lloyd, who is a writer for Esquire magazine. The whole movie is based on this article that appeared in Esquire magazine in the 90s. And Lloyd is having a lot of personal issues, and he goes and interviews Mr. Rogers for a profile of American heroes. And he ends up working through a lot of his own emotions and family issues in the process. But I wondered if the movie had this like magical cloak over it because everybody has good memories of Mr. Rogers. So we all just wanted to like it so badly. I saw Tom Hanks on screen. I love Tom Hanks. I love Mr. Rogers, but he wasn't quiet enough or non-threatening. Like Tom Hanks is bigger than Mr. Rogers. Like Mr. Rogers is a quite slight figure. And I feel like in that sense, he is not an intimidating figure to children. Like because he has these sort of like sprite-like qualities, I feel like kids no, seriously. I get what you're saying. Mr. Rogers and they're like, there's an adult I can trust because he doesn't look, he's like an older version of me. Like he's slight and he's smaller and he's soft-spoken and he's like just very slow and like circumspect. And Tom Hanks is like more of a domineering presence, like not in a bad way. Like you love Tom Hanks and everything, but he's not Mr. Rogers. It's not the same energy.
Yeah, I think he's unnerving in a different way. Because Mr. Rogers is unnerving because he's so nice.
Yeah.
And so he makes you open up. Right. Well, Tom Hanks is more like the dad. Yeah. Not the friend. He's got the twinkle in the eye, but he's a friend you talk to, not a guy you go to for help. And I think that was the biggest difference there. Yeah. But I also felt I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Fred Rogers. So the cynic in me was always looking for that in the movie. Because if you think about Fred Rogers, he had to go through a lot. Like he was bullied as a kid. He has this weird obsession with his weight. Like I don't know if you guys know, but he was at 143 pounds his entire TV career. And that was like his thing. Yeah. But they never really delve into it. And granted, he's not supposed to be a main character in this. But I just wish that I saw something different about the Fred Rogers in this film than all the other ones that have been made about him.
Yeah, like Kate was saying, you know, he's not the protagonist, so they don't invest as much time in him, but they also, there's a few moments where it's almost like they're walking on eggshells.
They could have interrogated his
relationship
failings
with his sons.
Like the director afterwards was like, because Mr. Rogers is also just a human being, and that's what we wanted to communicate. And it's like, you didn't really.
Well, yeah, not really.
He comes across as more of a mythical figure.
It's a fable.
In the end. It is a fable, and he doesn't like. There is a moment where, you know, Lloyd says like, it must not be easy to be your son, and you have 2 boys. So, and he was like, yeah, one definitely didn't tell people who his dad was. But we got through that and we worked through it. And it's like, that doesn't sound like a real story to me. I want to hear the nitty gritty details of like why it was hard. I want to hear a moment when your son came home and said, you know, that you picked him up from school and he pretended that you were his uncle or something, you know, like I want to hear that kind of story, not just like this sort of, yeah, things have been hard once, but I got through them. And what's up with you, Lloyd? Yeah. It's like, okay, but
there's an analogy. There's an analogy where they're playing the piano. And Mr. Rogers is saying, well, we have these bad feelings. And he's like, we slammed the keys at the end of the keyboard, going bong.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm waiting for those bong moments.
Yeah.
In the movie.
It weirdly at one point but then no explanation
I know,
comes from
right.
it. And you're like, what is Mr. Rogers feeling? Is he angry? Does he ever get angry?
He's a very interesting character, but we just get the surface glossy version, which is every single version we've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you say that he's not the protagonist, because perhaps it's my lack of exposure to the marketing, but
no, I was very surprised.
Like I don't really watch trailers, because if I'm going to go see a movie, I'll just go see the movie. But for this one, it's Tom Hanks is Mr. Rogers, period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that is the entire campaign. Yes.
I 100% thought that the character, I don't know who the actor's name is who plays Lloyd.
Matthew Rice.
Okay, so I thought his character was going to be like a behind the scenes producer, or maybe a lawyer or a consultant of some kind. And we would maybe get to see the Mr. Rogers who did the Senate hearings or congressional hearings.
Yeah.
And that it would be about the struggle of keeping a show like that on the air, or the struggle of just like helping kids work through their emotions. But besides a 1-year-old baby, there aren't a whole lot of children in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. It's more about an adult man and him dealing with his emotions and traumas that he experienced as a young kid. So I don't know, like I feel like Mr. Rogers is such a powerful, like there are a lot of powerful messages about the Mr. Rogers show in terms of like listening and looking at children and giving them space and time to like tell you how they're feeling instead of imposing feelings on them. I feel like that would have been a way more interesting exploration through like the eyes of Mr. Rogers. But instead, like we got a good story out of it, but we didn't really get like a Mr. Rogers. I didn't get any more insight into the guy.
Yeah. And that's where the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor, which came out last year and was in the running for, it didn't end up winning the Oscar for best documentary feature, but was it
even nominated?
Yeah, maybe it didn't even get a nomination. It was on the short list at least. Yeah. But some people felt it was robbed when it didn't make it all the way through. But
Amy Adams didn't win. Anyway, sorry, just bring up. I'm still mad about that.
Yeah, might as well re-up that.
Yeah. 2 movies. She could have won for 2 movies. Anyway, please continue.
But that documentary was in production at the same time that this Tom Hanks project was, and it just so happened the documentary came out first. But that was a movie that obviously featured Mr. Rogers front and center and talked about the Senate the congressional hearings. I can't remember. Basically, there was a series of hearings where they were trying to determine whether or not to shut down PBS or to drastically defund it. And basically, Mr. Rogers came in on one day and turned around the entire arc of the hearings and convinced the federal government to continue funding PBS just by doing his thing.
Being him.
Yeah.
Charming the people there.
And they do get, in that documentary, they do touch on the extreme, like, devotion to his weight. They talk about how he basically saw the puppet characters that he played on the show, King Friday and Daniel Striped Tiger, as basically pieces of him.
Yeah.
And
extensions of himself.
Extensions of himself to an almost like, if it was a horror movie, almost you could see them taking that and running with it and making it seem like he had a split personality. Like there's an aspect of that where he takes it a lot further than you might expect. And those are the details that, you almost do need to watch A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood and Won't You Be My Neighbor as a double feature, like the director suggested, to kind of get the full
I think the
picture. Obligation
with Mr. Rogers to like tell the story is to show how in our modern cynical world, how the way that he behaves and his idiosyncrasies, like his weight and the puppets, like in a different context or genre, he would be a villain. I think like those are like things that would be seen as creepy or whatever. But the obligation with Mr. Rogers is to show the purity of him and how, being open to your emotions and dealing with them properly, that you don't have to be so cynical about somebody who's trying to have a positive impact on the world. I think that's, and I didn't really get that. I was like, this is kind of borderline creepy. This guy's trying to have a serious interview with Mr. Rogers, and he's like, meet Daniel the tiger. And it's like, he's interrogating Lloyd about his personal problems using a hand puppet. And it's like, I'm sure it's not like it came across horribly, but it was just sort of like, there was a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah, so the article that is based on Tom Junod is the writer, and he goes through the same thing where he's trying to interview Mr. Rogers, but somehow he feels that Mr. Rogers' sort of niceness has been imposed on him, and so he does go through this change. But I don't think that was very well explained in the movie, where this guy goes from punching his dad at a wedding to just being A-okay after, what was it, a week that he does the interview with?
Yeah, he has this kind of surreal experience where he...
And I didn't really get that either, where he kind of, there's this sort of sequence where he becomes part of the set.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand what the filmmakers were going for. Like, is he being sucked into Mr. Rogers' weird little world, or is he coming to realization of what Mr. Rogers is trying to accomplish? I didn't understand that part. I don't know if you guys did.
I thought that there were, when he shows up in a dream sequence as his like old bunny from his childhood, I was like, this is weird. What I liked about the movie was the number of times Mr. Rogers enters a room or a situation and it's just himself, and the other adults in the room look at him like, what the fuck? Like, he's so nice. Like,
I think that said like more about Mr. Rogers than anything else in the movie.
I thought it was like quite sweet, actually.
It was
quite, I don't know. It was nice, but I don't know. It didn't quite hit the mark in every way, I found.
I think it's interesting. I don't know, hearing you guys talk about this. Like, I think the challenge is like, what do you do with Mr. Rogers as a character? Because people do have such reverence for, like, well deserved as well. We all should, right? Like, we could all be nicer and be, a bit more neighborly every day. But it's one of those things where, like, if you're a screenwriter, you're always looking for conflict, or you're looking for something like that. And when you look at the life of Fred Rogers, you're like, well, he didn't really get along with his kids super well, but they sort of worked it out. And he never talked about his childhood. And like,
that's
there's
the exact
nothing
issue
there.
that a screenwriter talked about during the Q&A after.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he was like, the problem with trying to make Fred Rogers a protagonist is that he's supremely awesome. So you can't, like, his story is actually really boring. But I don't know, there was still just a moment where they could have made Mr. Rogers a bit more human. They could have just found one thing that didn't go quite right and just have him talk about it, because otherwise...
Well, they mention it too, the temper he has, right?
Yeah.
But they never go into it. He never loses his temper.
Never once.
Not in an outward way.
No, but he is known to have a temper and to have things in a specific way.
Yeah.
He was very much he ran that show and had his weight the same reason. It wasn't because he didn't like control, right?
Yes.
Totally. And I just wanted to see a little bit of a flawed human being. So because an imperfect being is one who I can learn from. I can't learn from you if you are Mr. Perfect. I need to know that you too struggle, but you make the decision to get up in the morning and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, that's what an inspiration is, isn't it?
Yeah. And I wonder too, like, as much as a movie of this size needs a star like Tom Hanks to get financiers behind it, and the idea of the anchor star basically in making a movie from the financial side, I wonder whether maybe it's partially a casting thing where could they get some other person, maybe not quite as A-list as Tom Hanks, but still a very good actor, someone who maybe looks a bit more like him, or maybe has less of Tom Hanks's star baggage, as it were, less of his previous roles kind of informing how we see him as Mr. Rogers. I wonder if that might have changed.
Have you guys seen The Lady Killers? It's an old Tom Hanks film.
Oh, it was a Coen Brothers movie, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's parts of that character in this where he smiles at you and it's kind of unnerving, and you're not sure if he's being really nice or he's going to stab you in the face. There's that little aspect to it.
Yeah.
And that's usually, that's something that Tom Hanks hasn't really done a lot. It's a bit in Bonfire of the Vanities, if you've seen that. The movie doesn't really work, but what it does work with is, like, Tom Hanks doesn't play a good guy, and there's something about him that he would be great playing like P.T. Barnum or something, because there is something like, even though Tom Hanks is this very lovable and all that stuff, you like he has this very knowing quality that he knows that you're watching him.
Yeah.
And so that's something where I think, like, I don't know, I think
you're sort of getting Woody works so well in Toy Stories, because Woody's not happy. He's very irritated all the time. Like,
he's the only toy that feels that way too.
Yeah, but you like him because he's just like supremely irritated with the idiots that he's dealing with all the time, like the T-Rex and Mr. Potato Head, and you like empathize with him. But he's still like, he loves Andy, and he's on the right side, and he's a good guy, but he's also irritable and like kind of annoying to the people that he's with. But I don't know, it just makes him more realistic as a person.
Incidentally, they take that pretty far in the new Toy Story, Toy Story 4. Okay. They almost turn into Woody into a accidental villain.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a part where like a lot of the toys abandon him because
he wants to control.
He wants to control
that happens
everything.
In the first one, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, you could say
we could go more fun than you.
We can go into how unnecessary Toy Story 4 is.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a segment about that already. But.
Oh, I see. Okay. Anyway, what do you give A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood? Do you know yet?
I'm hovering around like 3.5 out of 5 right now. I mean, I did like on like a filmmaking.
That's literally just what I gave it on Letterboxd.
Oh, really?
We were eating dinner, yeah.
That's what I would give it to.
Because it's
3 to 3.5.
On a filmmaking level, they get a lot of stuff right. I mean, it is, the sequences that are shot in like real life are, there's great cinematography there. The performances are solid. The recreations of New York and Pittsburgh with the
miniatures,
the miniature set design from the show is all very fun.
Thank God they said it was Pittsburgh, because I was like, what is that, San Francisco? I couldn't tell what it was. I was like, what major U.S. city has a random hill gondola?
Oh, yeah.
Like
a funicular railroad or something.
Yeah.
It's got those 3 rivers, too.
Yeah, the giant bridges.
That you probably would have seen it, Pete, and been like, yes, I can name every single NCAA team that comes from this area.
Well, I did. 3 Rivers comes from 3 Rivers Stadium, which is where the Steelers played.
Oh, see, there we go. See, there we go. Yeah. Non-football fan sitting across from major football fan.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, forgot about the Steelers coming from Pittsburgh.
Yes. Indeed. They're playing the New England Patriots right now.
Oh.
I think the Venn diagram of fans of this show and fans of that game is just 2 circles on a page. Just about 6 inches between them. So
Indeed. Yeah.
The sacrifices I make. And if anyone wonders what I look like, I don't know. Have you guys been to any Midnight Madness screenings?
Yes, I saw the Disaster Artist at Midnight Madness.
So TIFF programmer Peter Kaplowski, if he takes his hat off, looks exactly like me. So just in case you wonder,
I have to see that. No. He has a way weaker chin.
That's a compliment.
We can cut this part out. I just wanted to bring that up.
No, I think we should leave it in. It's
As he walked by me yesterday, I was like, this guy looks like we wear the same glasses. I wanted to say something to him, and I realized the line that I'm going to use as when he walks by me again, because he walked by me today, is, "Hey, Peter, if you ever need a stunt double, I'm your guy."
He would probably appreciate that.
He probably would.
Yes. Yeah. I can fall down.
But that pretty much does it for the movies we've seen so far. So maybe we'll do a little bit of a preview for some of the stuff that we're excited for and the rest of the festival.
I actually saw one more Dolomite is my name today.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes. Okay. And I can just quickly add to say Eddie Murphy is great and has always been great. He just doesn't care. And when you see him in something where he cares, you're like, oh, this guy's a star. Like, you're like, oh, Eddie Murphy's funny and charismatic. Who knew?
Yeah,
like,
there's a reason he was on the top of the box office in the 90s.
Yeah. And the 80s, for 20 years. Like, he's amazing in it. And Wesley Snipes is an actual character in it. And I've only seen Wesley Snipes in Passenger 57 and all 3 Blade movies. So seeing Wesley Snipes as an actual character, I was like, oh, I forgot. He's actually a wonderful actor with like depth and range. He's very interesting and funny to watch.
That's funny you say that, because I could say the same about Jean-Claude Van Damme too. He did JCVD where he plays Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it's not quite the same, but like I'm just like, wow, these like really like crazy action stars from the 80s and 90s. Like if you give them a little depth, a lot of them can pull it off.
Sure.
Oh my God, sorry. Every time I think of Jean-Claude Van Damme now, it's just the freaking Volkswagen commercial. It's just the split. So you're like, yeah, that's a man with depth. I'm like, sure it is.
Yeah. So JCVD, if you can get your hands on it, it's very interesting. It's a failed actor who tries to rob a bank.
Oh, okay.
I will say
that or like the YouTube footage people have uploaded now of him in his deep V-neck tank top. all greased up and dancing in the 80s in certain movies. That is not a way to get a good impression of what was his name again?
Jean-Claude
Van Damme. Thank you. Yeah.
I was just going to say that Wesley Snipes played Othello, I believe.
Oh,
did he?
I don't know what Jean-Claude Van Damme's Shakespearean background is, but
I'm sure Bloodsport's like a metaphor for one of them.
Oh yeah, that's a retelling of Hamlet. That's a retelling of Hamlet, right? It's the Two Gentlemen of Verona, one of the obscure ones. Yeah.
But will Eddie Murphy like come out of Dolomite Is My Name with some sort of like new energy behind him, do you think? Because
I think so. So it's a Netflix movie.
Okay.
And I think that I was reading some of the reviews, and some people are right that sometimes when you see something that is a movie for Netflix, it can feel slightly televisual, and this does feel that way, but or in some parts, but it's also a biopic, and I always find biopics like televisual. There are a few that I see that I'm like, that it doesn't look like just a VH1 with a higher budget. Rocket Man, actually, this year's Rocket Man was one of the few, whereas Bohemian Rhapsody just looked like a TV movie, right? Like
yes.
Every aspect of it. And so Rocket Man by the same director, weird. But
really? As Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah.
Well, Bohemian Rhapsody was started by Bryan Singer.
Yeah.
Right. I forgot about this controversy.
Sex abuse allegations came out, and
apparently he was also a friggin' nightmare though.
Yeah, and he would like not show up to set and all of these things. Anyway, the point is that I think Dolomite Is My Name, which tells a story that I think most people wouldn't know about like the early days of sort of blaxploitation cinema, and this one particular guy who just had the gumption to be a star despite lacking many star qualities such as youth and a great figure. It's very funny. At one point the guy says, so we put out movies by people like Jim Brown, who's a former NFL player. He's like, you don't really have the same sort of assets of Jim Brown. And Eddie Murphy just sort of looks at his stomach, and he's like, I can get a girdle. It's very funny. But yeah, I really liked it. It will be very interesting to see if Eddie Murphy, if they build up to some sort of production deal with Netflix, etc., if he gets to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you want about Adam Sandler. With his Netflix deal, he got to do the movies that he wanted to do.
Yeah, even if they're like crass and very like lowest common denominator, I mean, he has ultimate creative freedom there.
Yeah, and some of them turned out like interesting. They weren't good, but it wasn't Grown Ups 2, 3, 4, and 5. He did other work that was more interesting. And to see someone, an Adam Sandler, certain level of talent, Eddie Murphy, talent. For the listener, I'm holding my hands very far apart. Eddie Murphy's talent is just unbelievable, and to see him, and when you do see him pop up in Dreamgirls or something, and you're like, oh, I could watch this guy do anything, right? Like he's just a star, and he's funny and charming and charismatic, and if he cares and if he tries, he could be a movie star again, no problem. And if he wanted to say, Netflix, give me $60 million and I'll give you a movie a year for 6 years, like, I think they'd be crazy not to do it. I wonder, my question though is with this, also Craig Robinson's in it and gets to sing and like not comedy sing, actually sing.
Oh.
It's amazing. The music
I
is...
love him as Doug Judy.
Yes.
In Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
He's amazing.
And the Pontiac Bandit.
Yeah. So the costumes, sorry, I didn't realize I had this much to say about it. The costumes are amazing, all this stuff. My question is, whether or not this will end up with nominations for anyone. Eddie Murphy's very good in it. He doesn't have a huge range, but it is kind of like, very talented actor in late career doing a biopic. Like this is Oscar bait.
Yeah, the Academy goes for that. Yeah.
In big capital letters, right? So, but what the Academy doesn't like is Netflix, and they don't like the fact that this movie is gonna. I think it's having a very small release, it's a qualifying release, but it's going to be on Netflix in a few months.
Does the Academy like Eddie Murphy though?
Well, I mean, they didn't. Like
I think they like actors who make like a real career like turn.
Yeah, there's some taste in that, but Eddie Murphy,
a redemption track.
Yeah,
Eddie Murphy has a bit of an interesting history because the same year that he made Dreamgirls and got some very good critical notices for it, he also made Norbit, which was
get it right, please respect the filmmakers.
I love the fact that Netflix gave Adam Sandler a deal though, because the algorithm does not serve me with his content, so it's not not a mass market splash of Adam Sandler everywhere. I'm like, good, you just stay in your Netflix corner now, sir.
But like after Eddie Murphy, that kind of he seemingly torpedoed his own possible Oscar win with Norbit. And to the point that literally some people call it pulling an Eddie Murphy if in the same year you have an Oscar contender coming out at the same time as a really terrible movie that hurts your chances. Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending / The Theory of Everything. Some people thought, Eddie Redmayne.
Yes.
Okay, but you know who did a really good job of avoiding that trap? Sandra Bullock. She showed up. She got an Oscar and showed up to pick up her Razzies the same year. Did she not?
I think you might be thinking of Halle Berry.
No, Sandra Bullock.
No, I think she did it too. Sandra Bullock.
She had a little Toys R Us like cart, and she carted out all of her previous Razzies in the cart, and then picked up her new one and was like, "Thanks so much, guys." And it was like when she was having a career revival.
That's amazing.
I think it was with The Blind Spot or something.
The Blind Side.
The Blind Side. Yeah.
Lots of NFL talk tonight.
Yeah. Who knew?
But after that whole thing with Norbit, Eddie Murphy was in kind of like the no man's land, and he even made a movie called Mr. Church where he played a magical Negro in the year of our Lord 2017. And I'm pretty sure that's the year. And he literally plays a character who like raises a young white girl from infancy. And then we never learn anything about like him as a person, except that he goes to jazz clubs late at night and plays piano. And
is this a trope, the magical Negro?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, he wasn't just dropping that.
Okay. I was like, did Eddie Murphy call himself that? Is like, what is?
No.
I think I see what you mean.
Yes.
How it's always a black woman taking care of like children.
The Legend of Beggar Vance.
Right.
Classically.
Yeah.
Mr. T in Not Another Teen Movie.
Right.
So
There
many
you go.
examples.
Yeah, but it was astonishing to me that like he would sign up to do a movie like that.
Oh, Tyra Banks in that where she plays like a Barbie doll come to life.
Okay.
Same thing.
Sorry.
Same
but
thing.
I'll
take your word
trust
for
you.
it.
Yes.
It fits the mold. Trust me. Just trust me.
But I just think like it will be very interesting. Eddie Murphy has a very checkered past, like more so than people think. His 1980s comedy has really not aged well.
Oh my
and
God,
so,
no.
But the thing is, it will be very.
But Kevin Hart is still trying to bring it back to life. Kevin Hart's like, oh my God, did you guys see the clip of him jutting in on Lil Nas X?
No.
Oh God. Okay.
He's not been
we
doing
won't get
any
into
jetting
it now,
in for
but
a while.
No.
Anyway, sorry, you were talking.
But I just wanted to say that it will be interesting to see like Eddie Murphy, not a guy who loves doing press, not a guy who like he's very wealthy. He's very he lives in the world of the very wealthy, and I think it would be interesting to see him doing an Oscar campaign, doing all that stuff. But the one thing is, the Academy group that voted on Dreamgirls is not the same as the Academy today. And in the 10 years, it has been a dramatically different, like we're now dealing with dramatically different voters. They are younger, they are more diverse. And, this is a nearly all black cast. The music is incredible. Snoop Dogg is very funny in it.
He's a funny guy.
Yes.
His breakout for me was when he played a member of Korn in the Twisted Transistor video.
No,
Okay. If you haven't seen this video, it is incredible. Snoop Dogg plays a member of Korn in the Twisted and Lil Jon plays the lead singer. And they're like, his name's like Mookie or something that they give him. And they're like, Mookie, we need you to come out of your trailer. And he's like getting really high and hotboxing his trailer. And he's like, don't tell me what to do. This is my expression. And you're just like, Snoop Dogg, you're amazing. Yeah. I highly recommend watching the Korn Twisted Transistor. You guys are all looking at me like I'm fucking crazy.
No. I totally believe you.
It's really good. Okay.
Snoop Dogg shows up in a lot of random things, and he's always entertaining.
He's
funny.
very funny. In this, he plays an actual character that is not Snoop Dogg, but it is still.
He was playing a character in the Korn video.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. But So Dolomite is my name. I like it. It's very funny. You'll be able to see it on Netflix. But that was just my question of, does Netflix take that next step? Do they put all of their energy and money? Lord knows they have money. Do they put that behind something like this, an individual actor and one who's doing, as I said, like the late career biopic performance? I don't know. It will be very interesting to see. Or maybe because it's a comedy, it doesn't have the weight of Walk the Line or whatever other mediocre musical biopic. Oh, excuse me.
Don't insult Walk the Line around Jason because he will come for you.
What?
You love Walk the Line.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. I thought you said I don't. No, I love Walk Hard.
Although every movie biopic has been, or music biopic has been ruined now by Walk Hard.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's Dewey Cox formula. Like, I mean, or the test rather, I prefer to call it, where
the Dewey Cox test.
The Dewey Cox test. If your biopic, mostly if it's a musical biopic, but I think it applies in other biopics too. If you can craft your movie in such a way that Dewey Cox can't lampoon it, then you've kind of
Bohemian
succeeded.
Rhapsody.
Yeah. Because Bohemian Rhapsody failed pretty hard.
Anton Corbijn's Control, which is the story of Joy Division, that avoids that trap. But I'm going to the Joker red carpet tomorrow night, and I will be sure to tell mercurial actor Joaquin Phoenix that I think his performance in Walk the Line was overrated.
Yeah, that's somebody you want to test.
Yeah.
What mood is Joaquin in tonight?
Famously stable actor.
Well, that's a movie that's cresting pretty high right now because it just won the Golden Lion at Venice. And
what? I'm so skeptical.
Do
I need this story again?
And seems like the majority of critics are siding with it. They're saying it's one of the greatest of the year. There's still, there's a few voices in there. A favorite of Jason and mine, David Ehrlich, he gave it 2 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. He's famously very stringent with his star rankings. So, it's good to see that, it's not just one big bandwagon. But I'm both curious and also terrified to see what the online discourse is going to be like around the Joker. It's already kind of, I was going to say,
it's already bad.
Yeah.
So, but
is it really?
As more people see it, though.
Has it gotten a Rotten Tomatoes rating yet? Or?
No, because it's not in wide release, but because people are already trying to make the argument without a lot of evidence, because none of them have seen it online, that somehow a movie like Joker, because it puts a villain, a murderer, front and center, and will probably show a few things that kind of led up to the Joker character being who he is, that somehow the movie is apologizing for that behavior. And in an era with mass shootings and incel culture and those kinds of things in the background, what does a Joker movie kind of forgive that kind of stuff, apologize for it?
Yeah, are you supposed to feel sympathy for the guy?
Exactly, yeah. And that's a problem that I think it's something that, I don't know, that's bothered me for a long time, is this kind of failure of critical thought in certainly online culture, where people have a hard time distinguishing causation from endorsement.
Okay.
It goes back to a movie like Zero Dark 30, where people said, oh, this movie is apologizing for torture, and it's saying that it was a good thing that the U.S. tortured all of these guys to get information about where Osama bin Laden was. Not really. It's more like, this is a bad thing that they did. It got results, but maybe the movie is not saying, yes, this is a good thing. We 100% endorse this, right? It's not quite as cut and dry as that.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Oh, interesting.
I do think that movie justifies torture because that's not what led to the capture of Osama bin Laden, and I think depicting it in that way is morally repugnant and irresponsible.
Oh.
But that's an argument for a different I think there can be a diversity of opinion with anything.
Sure.
And I think my challenge with Joker, I think we're all sort of tensed for that because it could be really cool, it could be really interesting, but this is the guy who made the Hangover movies, and I like Todd Phillips, but I really didn't like those movies, and I found their depiction of anyone who wasn't a good-looking white guy pretty reprehensible, especially the female characters in the Hangover movies. The prostitute and the shrewish wife. Literally, that's it. What's the other?
No, there's no others.
Yeah. Silent wife.
Yes. Yeah. But a
the annoyed
sex
fiance.
worker. Yeah, So you just on past form, I'm skeptical. Their goals of doing this sort of 1970s,
King of Comedy.
Yeah, King of Comedy character piece. It's okay, but anyway, I agree that I am not looking forward to the discourse surrounding the Joker movie. And, anyway.
Yeah.
I'll be sure to bring this all up with Joaquin tomorrow night.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
That's somebody you want to poke the bear with.
Yes. If anyone wants another podcast recommendation, John C. Reilly was on NPR's Fresh Air a few months ago in the spring, actually, and it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And he talks about working with Joaquin Phoenix
on Sisters Brothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very funny and very entertaining.
Fun fact, that was the movie that Kate forgot to go to last year.
I didn't forget.
Amazing.
I slept through it.
That's true. I
woke up and was like, oh shit. I'm supposed to be sitting in a theater with Robert now.
Skipped a movie because I didn't want to walk to it. I had gone for a run, been in a race the day before. Not that I run that often, and my legs were so messed up the next day. I was like, I'm not going to walk to it. This is when I lived literally 2 blocks away.
What was the movie?
It was The Shape of Water.
Oh, okay.
You missed such a good one.
Yes.
Oh my God, you missed an Oscar.
Seeing it in the theater where it was filmed.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I saw it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We probably would have been in the same screening then. Yeah.
My legs hurt so bad. Anyway.
I think Sunday morning screenings are ungodly.
Speaking of which, I have a Sunday evening one. I have one at 10. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, one other one I'm excited about for later this week is we're seeing Seberg, starring Kristen Stewart as Gene Seberg. And there's this podcast that I've been forcing on everyone I know called
It's very
You Must
good.
Remember This. Yes, it's very good. It's hosted by Karina Longworth.
Oh, you haven't mentioned this.
Fun fact, not at all. Fun fact, partner of Rian Johnson of Star Wars fame.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Anyway, she has a really good 10-part series on Charles Manson's Hollywood. And she has, I think it's an 8-part series called Gene and Jane.
Oh.
And it tracks the trajectories, sort of intersecting sometimes, but really different in the end, of Jane Fonda and Gene Seberg.
Oh.
And so having learned a bit more about Gene Seberg and the fact that both of them were donors to the Black Panthers, which is very fascinating. I'm curious to see what they do with her.
And Kristen Stewart is playing her, so that's a bonus.
I'm curious to see what they do with her in this movie.
And I'd like to learn more about her, even if it's in a kind of like somewhat restricted format of a biopic.
It's a sad story.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've only
Very
really
sad
seen
story.
her in Breathless.
Oh, Gene Seberg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they the media. Okay, you guys know Mike Wallace, the Fox News commentator. Is it Mike Wallace?
60
Chris
Minutes guy?
Wallace.
Oh, okay.
Chris Wallace.
Mike Wallace
Mike
from
Wallace's
60 Minutes son.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yes. Okay.
there is an interview that Karina Longworth plays in her podcast of Mike Wallace interviewing Gene Seberg, and I don't know if the guy was irritated that he was used to doing like massive investigative journalism pieces, and then they plunked this starlet from Iowa in front of him and he was annoyed by it, but he was such a dick to Gene Seberg. It's unbelievable. He was like, because she was plucked from obscurity basically by this director as a young girl from Iowa and put into a major film. And he was like, so Gene, because you didn't earn anything that you have, like, do you think that you'll ever go back to learn how to become an actual actress? Questions her very existence and like, right to be in front of him getting interviewed. It was like, holy shit, Mike Wallace was having a bad day. Like, yeah. So anyway, what else are we seeing?
Well, we're going to be seeing Ford v Ferrari.
Yes.
So that's the story of the famous Le Mans race, and I think it was the 70s where Shelby, what's the guy's first name?
Carroll
Shelby, yeah, who famously developed the Shelby version of the Ford Mustang and was instrumental in a lot of Ford's successes during that time. Put together the Ford GT car that ended up kind of challenging Ferrari's dominance in car racing at the time. So that's a big one with like Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby, Christian Bale as what's the racer's name, the driver?
George? Don't remember. Sorry.
Oh, I should know that actually. I used to be way into cars.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's one of those
I'm not
like
that shocked.
it's going to be another one of those Oscar baity type things, and it was one of the buzzier like A-list type things coming into the festival this year.
Oh, and one that I'm very curious to see what happens with this is we're going to see this movie on Tuesday called Guns Akimbo.
Yes.
With Daniel Radcliffe. There's no trailer, almost no information online except for like photos where Daniel Radcliffe kind of looks like a crazy homeless person, like wielding
he's wearing
guns
a
in the
bathrobe.
street.
Yeah, and he's got like guns taped to his hands.
So I'm like, is it just not edited and finished yet, or is it really bad and they don't want to do any kind of like
It's hard to say. Sometimes movies will come to TIFF without a trailer because they haven't sold it to a distribution company yet, and it's not until the distribution deal is in place that they bother to like start thinking about marketing and work out what the trailer is going to look like. Or it could be the other option where it is really bad and they're trying to hide it. But the plot of this one is essentially Daniel Radcliffe plays a guy who is kidnapped and wakes up to discover that he's been injected into some sort of underground live stream deathmatch type of thing. And he's had these guns taped to his hands that he can't take off, and he's got to like survive. So
what?
Yeah.
Okay, well now this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
I'll take this time to plug Gamer, the Neville Dean and Taylor movie.
Oh, the one that
came out a few years ago.
Gerard Butler?
Yes, that's better than you think it is.
Oh, okay.
It's still,
Is it also
offensive.
like a virtual reality
yes.
deathmatch?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever dug deep into like shitty content on Netflix just for fun?
Yeah.
Because I came across one, I think it was called The Circle, and basically it's just this like
the Tom Hanks Emma Watson movie.
No, it's a different one called The Circle, where it's just like a thought experiment. Basically, 30 people wake up in a random room, and every minute, whenever a light goes off, they have to pick a different one to die amongst each other. So it's like Survivor, for like an hour or an hour and a half. Anyway, that's what Guns Akimbo reminds me of. Is just waking up and randomly being in some sort of death match that you did not choose to be part of.
Yeah.
This guy's like Cube.
Yeah. Yeah. So
exactly.
we're gonna see that tomorrow.
We're gonna see Marriage Story. That's the Noah Baumbach film with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson.
Yes,
and it's getting amazing reviews.
Yes, really. And
some people are saying
it's very much
Scarlett's best efforts to derail.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very Oscar baity because it's about two people who work in the entertainment industry and marriage, and it's got like a really strong supporting cast as well. So that'll be interesting. Noah Baumbach's, I feel like he's overdue. He doesn't make a whole lot of films, but
yeah, he's been a quiet like member of the indie filmmaking circuit for a while. I really liked his Netflix partnership, the Meyerowitz stories.
The Squid and the Whale I thought was excellent.
The Squid and the Whale is amazing.
Yeah,
and I do not have a lot of like stomach and patience for that sort of thing, and I loved it.
The kind of like mumblecore kind of indie filmmaking.
Yes.
I come down strongly on the side of loving Greta Gerwig.
Anything with Adam Driver, I'll watch because I just think I think he's so versatile.
Yeah.
If you're scrolling through Netflix and you want a masterclass in dialogue, not just dialogue writing, but dialogue editing, Meyerowitz Stories is that, because it captures so well how families talk over each other and how they're not waiting for the other person to finish their thought. They're jumping in, changing the subject immediately, and weaving so many decades of shared history into what they're saying. There's a great video from The Nerd Writer, the YouTube channel, on the dialogue in the Meyerowitz Stories. It's got one of those like really pretentious names, the Meyerowitz Stories New and Selected.
Yeah, remember earlier when I said I didn't have a lot of patience?
Yeah.
And then we're also going to see Bad Education, which is Hugh Jackman. He plays a man called Frank Tassoni, who is I think is superintendent for a school district in New York, and somehow walked away and stole $8 million in public school funds.
Wow.
And so Hugh Jackman plays the villain, basically.
Oh, because we were trying to figure that out from...
Yeah. And anytime an actor goes... Because Hugh Jackman we always see as this like handsome protagonist. Anytime they go out of their way to be the antagonist or the bad person in the film, I'm always interested. And I think he does a pretty good job of doing that kind of stuff.
He's the bad guy in The Prestige, right? Ish. He's kind of evil. He's kind of...
They're both kind of the evil.
Right. They're not... Neither one are great, but he doesn't play a great guy in
No.
Right?
He's more like the bad guys in The Prestige.
Oh.
Yeah.
Clever. We'll just let that sit for a second.
If you haven't watched it, come on.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I guess Christian Bale plays bad guys too, eh?
True, yeah. Yeah, so the question is like, who gets there under more ethical means?
I guess so.
Yeah. But what else am I seeing? Because I've taken a whole week off for TIFF this year, so I've got plenty of time to kill in dark theaters. I'm going to be seeing Uncut Gems, which I know Kate wasn't excited for, but it's a dramatic role from Adam Sandler. And if anyone out there has loved Punch Drunk Love, his collaboration with Paul Thomas Anderson, then I expect great things from this.
Do you want to hear my weird problem with Adam Sandler?
Okay.
It's very specific.
Okay.
It comes down to a premiere that he showed up at with Kevin James and Selena Gomez, where Selena Gomez, in typical Hollywood starlet female fashion, had to show up in a ball gown, full hair and makeup.
I think I know where this is
slit
going.
up to the thigh, and like 5-inch heels in order to. And she was photographed next to two middle-aged schlub dads. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Kevin James and Adam Sandler wearing their frickin' like flip-flops and their stupid hats and their like old shirts with their big baggy shorts, and I was just like, this is gender hypocrisy.
Yeah,
in
they
the
have a
worst
bad track
possible
record
way.
for not taking red carpets very seriously.
Because he has the
Them and all
privilege to
their
not take it
friends.
seriously
Yeah.
because he's the one in power, and
Yeah.
they give each
But
other
Kevin
movie
James,
roles.
Kevin
and-
James earned everything he has.
Of course he did. Of course, Paul Blart Mall Cop was like
He's put
one
so
for
much
the
work
ages.
into being a celebrity. Like,
Such work ethic.
yeah, just the appearance and all that stuff.
You have to try so hard to be a male movie star.
Yeah,
Especially when you know Adam Sandler, Anyway, rant over.
Well, yeah.
Continue
So Uncut Gems, Sandler is back in a dramatic role, though there's probably going to be a bit of comedy in there too. He plays a jeweler in New York who gets pulled into this kind of caper heist type of story. But the real attractor for me is the directors, Josh and Benny Safdie, who made a movie in 2017 with Robert Pattinson called Good Time.
Yeah.
Which was just a like top to bottom, super confident, like almost out of nowhere kind of feature with Robert Pattinson playing this scuzzy petty thief who is motivated by the love he has for his brother, who has a mental disability. His brother gets captured during one of their attempted bank robberies and gets sent to Rikers Island in New York. And he knows that because of his brother's disability, he's going to be treated terribly in prison. So he embarks on this night-long attempt to get together enough cash for his brother's bail, and just finds himself in the scuzziest, worst parts of New York underworld late at night. And they had been on like the indie filmmaking circuit for a while, making short films, but they really burst out with this. And I'm really curious to see what they do with like a much bigger cast and, a little bit more money.
Sounds great.
Yeah. And then there's a few others sprinkled in there too. I'm going to be seeing Lucy in the Sky, the new Natalie Portman.
Every Oscar-winning actor has to do a movie in space at some point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their Oscar winner bingo card.
I'm seeing Lucy in the Sky and Guns Akimbo as well. I think that's what we're overlapping.
Oh, good.
Are you there on Tuesday?
No,
Guns
different
Akimbo?
days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Every year I go to, the more I go to TIFF, the more I realize that I just mostly want to see all the Midnight Madness films.
Yeah.
And I'm going to a bunch of them with my friend or not with my friend. I'm going to a bunch of them, and my friend is going to all of the same films, and she is not overlapping with me.
Well, I mean,
very funny. Claudia, she's the coolest person. She works at Sneaky D. She's the coolest person. She's got a PhD in English. No, history. Anyway, she's the coolest person.
Are you saying let's be friends? Because we could be friends for sure.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Pete always finds great friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. New people to introduce me to. I'm like, oh, I really like this person. Thanks, Pete. Seriously.
The curator of Friends.
Yeah, seriously.
That's
He's
it.
like, who's really cool? This person. Let's be friends. I'm like, okay.
That's a wonderful compliment.
It is.
Yes.
It's true, though.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts before we close out this episode?
First, thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Second, it's very funny that you tried to wrap up the show 25 minutes ago.
No, it happens with me and Rob all the time. We're like, we're gonna wrap it up. Oh, we gotta say something else. Oh, we got something else.
It's like, oh yeah, Dolomite.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly. Yeah.
I'll just quickly, is always
And then it
the-
goes into all sorts of different directions. That's why we say it's a free flowing conversation.
Yeah.
Cover our butts.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just a license to keep our podcast listeners going, and then checking the runtime left on their podcast app, and they're like, okay.
Well, thank you. Also,
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Pete, for reminding me to have manners.
Yeah.
That's good
So, and today we were joined by Peter Henderson and Kate Wilkinson, and of course Jason Chen, who's come all the way from Vancouver to be with us in the flesh.
Woo. We didn't acknowledge that at all. The fact that this is very rare that you're here.
Oh, well, they just did. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
So
it has been I think 5+ years since I've been here. So
Oh my God.
We saw each other for the first time in 5 years earlier today.
What?
6.
Yes.
6.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, yay.
Yeah. No better place. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Head on over to our wonderful website, kinetoscope.ca, for reviews as they're posted from TIFF, which I'll be writing. And, of course, Jason is going to be providing coverage for VIFF, the Vancouver International Film Festival. He's got himself some accreditation for that. So there'll be content up on the site for that. Peter's got a...
Just quickly, right, Pete?
Yeah. Just quickly. No, I was going to say, do we give out our social media?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Go for it.
My tweets are terrible. And I tweet at Henderson.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spell it.
Sometimes you complain about weird inconsistencies with like Microsoft hardware. So it's
Good time. If you want real esoteric complaints about computer hardware and software and
flight delays.
Yes.
Are you one of those people?
No, actually.
Oh,
and
okay.
I never say wheels up in whatever.
Or how the Dow Jones is a terrible index.
No, okay. So I do. Listen, it's price weighted, not stock weighted. So it doesn't make sense to use it as an indicator. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm at TweetsByKate88, but my bio literally says mostly here to retweet, and that is true. I am mostly there to retweet things that I find enjoyable.
Oh, and letterbox handles. We can do those too.
I'm at Henderson on basically all social media.
Good,
I'm pretty sure I'm on Letterboxd as Henderson. I don't know. I don't follow you, Kate. What's yours?
I'm 88 Luftballons, like 99 Luftballons, but 88 because that's the year I was born. So you're welcome.
I always like Kate's reviews on Letterboxd because she'll often say that the internet has informed me that I'm crazy for liking something, but I liked it anyway. That's,
King Arthur, the Guy Ritchie King Arthur
We were
movie.
just talking about that movie earlier
What
today.
I was told by the internet is that I should be ashamed of myself for liking that movie as much as
have no shame.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Also, the only review that you need to read of mine is that when you watch Beauty and the Beast, the new one, you need to Google images of Dan Stevens in his CGI beast suit.
Oh, I've seen those.
Because that'll ruin the movie for you. If it wasn't already ruined by watching it.
I think I might just Google those.
Yeah.
Just Google that. Don't watch it. Just Google CGI beast suit, Dan Stevens. You're welcome. And that's it for me.
All right.
And I think that does it.
Yeah, I think that about does it. Thanks for finally ending.
Oh my God.